Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm finally returning to you today for a paid request review. That I shout out goes to Mr. Dirk Mason for the paid request, which thank you so much. So this is for an album review for Pulse Ultra Headspace that I got a chance to listen to for this 14 track record and for a 49-minute record and some seconds. But I'm going to discuss what I listened to for this 14-track album by Pulse Ultra Headspace and let you know my thoughts on this record overall. So let's dive into this album review now. Basically, Pulse Ultra was a band back in the 2000s. They were more for their grunge sound. But honestly, with what I listened to, Zoo Visa is the Visa is the guy's name that was the lead singer of the band, and they're not active anymore because of, I guess they didn't want to continue music. They only made one album, to be honest, in their whole discography, and to be honest, it's not a terrible record, but some critics may have bashed this record a little too much. But Acceptance Phase 1 is the opening track, and that is a pretty good song from what I've listened to. I really dig this one and how it sounds. Zoe Visa's vocals sound pretty strong in this, so it's a acquired taste, but I still like it. 5 out of 5. Finding My Place Phase 2 is a strong track too. Really like this one as well. Give this a 5 out of 5. I like the drum work, the guitar work, the way Zoe Visa's vocals are sounding in this track are really outstanding. Really dig this song. 5 out of 5. Put It Off was another strong track that I really enjoyed. More of a grungy kind of sound, but it sounds pretty good for the hard rock, grunge kind of stuff they're going for, and it executes pretty well. Zoe Visa's vocals are pretty strong, so I'd give it a 5 out of 5 for this one. Big Brother is another amazing track that I listened to, um, which there were some critiques I had with this, but not too many. Other than that, the track did execute pretty well, so this is a 5 out of 5. Never the Culprit was a pretty good song in its own way. I think Zoe Visa's vocals were kind of, for most of this record, it sounds good, but there were a few critiques with his vocals tone that I had some issues with. Not main issues, but minor issues with how it was executing with some songs. And this track tended to go on for a little bit, but it's not terrible, so 4.75 out of 5. Slip and Sin is a pretty good song in its own way. I'd give this a 4.75 out of 5. I had a few critiques with how it's structured some of the time, with the guitar work and drum work, but execution-wise, this track performed alright with Zoe Visa's vocals. So 4.75 out of 5. Prelude is just a prelude track to the next one, which is Void. So another 4.75 out of 5. Can't remember how long the track was, but I remember that it wasn't really that long, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, it was like a minute and 10 seconds, so it wasn't very long. It's a piano version of the track. Nice piano work, but pretty good for how it sounds, so 4.75 out of 5. Void is a pretty good track in its own way. I'd give it a 4.75 out of 5. Zoe Visa's vocal tone has its good moments and its cringe moments, but overall, I think the track executed alright instrumentally, so yeah, 4.75 out of 5 for this one. Build Your Cages is another strong track that I really enjoyed. Had a good time listening to it. The lyrics were odd, but it progressed and sounded very good execution wise and how it's mixed and produced. So This is a strong track, and it definitely rocks for sure. 5 out of 5. Tired is a pretty strong track. Um, I'd give this a 5 out of 5. It executed pretty well for how it sounded. Zovisa's vocals were pretty strong for this track, and execution-wise, instrumentally, it was pretty good for how it sounded. I mean, it tended to drift off from time to time, but it still executed very well. 5 out of 5. Interlude is an interlude track to the next song, Look Closer. So this is a 4.75 out of 5. You're not in for much for this track. Just a little bit of bass work with how the bass sounds in this song. The bass guitar, so it's fine. Look Closer is a strong track. I really enjoyed this. I had to really dissect and listen to this a little bit to get what I'm listening to and see if I like it or not. But I do. So 5 out of 5 for this one. It did very well. Glass Door was pretty catchy. I like some of the guitar riffing in this track. Sounds very experimental, but in a good way. So this is a pretty strong track, 5 out of 5. And finally, we get to the closing track, This Spot. I believe is how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it correctly. Strong track, to close out the record, and pretty good way to close out this record, to be honest. Zovisa's, vocals are pretty, strong, so I'd give this a strong 5 out of 5 for this one. The closing track was really good, and execution-wise, it performed very well. Sorry about my cracking vocals. My cracking vocals were kind of getting in the way. It's just something's in my throat or whatever, so I'm okay, don't worry. But other than that, overall production, mixing, and execution-wise, I think Headspace by Pulse Ultra was a pretty good record. Definitely worth checking out as a 2002 record. This record is like 22 years old, almost 23 years old as of next year. Keep in mind, after July 16th, it will be 23 years old, because I think that's when it came out, the record. But it's a really strong record. Consists of really good songs for the most part. There were a few critiques with this record that brought the rating down a bit, but other than that, it's a pretty good album. I mean, it's a shame that they're not together anymore, because they're very underrated, and in a good way. And I think what I wish would happen is if they came back and decided to make more music, but that's up to them. But other than that, for a score, I'm giving Pulse Ultra Headspace an 8.5 out of 10. Really good record, definitely rocks for sure. Highly recommend you check this album out. Thank you so much, Mr. Dirt Mason, for recommending this record to me, and definitely anyone that wants to hit me up with paid request reviews, hit me up on Instagram for Brian Delivers 2952, or that way you can privately get my Cash App tag so you could send the money to me, because it is a paid request thing that I do for these request albums to listen to. My price range goes up from $2.50 to $15. It depends on when the album came out, what year, and if it's newer records, I'm going to charge 10 to 15 bucks. Like 2010s to 2020 records, it's going to be 10 to 15 bucks. Just keep in mind of that. But other than that, 8.5 out of 10 for this record. Thank you so much for watching this album review tonight.